In 1958, British Railways accepted a diesel locomotive with 3 powered axles at one end, 2 at the other, a 2-stroke V8 engine, and cab windows that would soon require rebuilding. The 20 Metropolitan-Vickers Type 2s, later Class 28, became the only Co-Bo mainline class in British practice. Within a decade, 19 had been condemned. Was the strange axle arrangement the fatal mistake, or did the most visible feature take the blame for a different failure? The answer lies in 3 places: the overnight Condor freight, the Crossley engine room, and the departmental career that accidentally saved D5705. The class belonged to the pilot scheme, the experimental purchasing phase within British Railways' rapid move from steam to diesel. In the mid-1950s, the railway wanted to compare manufacturers, engines, transmissions, and power groups before committing to large standard fleets. The Type B contract drawings for the future Co-Bos were prepared by Metropolitan-Vickers in 1955. About 100 original waxed linen drawings survive in the Science Museum Group's GEC Traction Archive. They show that the odd appearance was engineered, not improvised after delivery. Metropolitan-Vickers built 20 locomotives, D5700 to D5719, at Bosfield Works in Stockton-on-Tees during 1958 and 1959. Each was a diesel-electric Type 2 rated at 1,200 horsepower. The prime mover was a Crossley HST V8, a low-speed 2-stroke engine running at 625 revolutions per minute. It drove a direct current generator which fed 5 Metropolitan-Vickers traction motors. 5 motors required 5 powered axles. The result was Co-Bo, a 3-axle powered bogie at one end and a 2-axle powered bogie at the other. That asymmetry has dominated the class's memory. On a side elevation, one bogie is visibly longer. The locomotive therefore looks unbalanced, even before anyone knows its reputation. Yet the arrangement had a rational purpose. 5 driven axles could spread adhesive weight and produce unusually high starting tractive effort for a Type 2. The quoted maximum was 50,000 pounds force. With a maximum speed of 75 miles per hour and route availability 6, the design was intended to handle both freight and passenger work without concentrating the locomotive's weight onto only 4 powered axles. The Co-Bo formula was rare, but rarity is not proof of failure. Electric and diesel locomotives elsewhere used unequal axle groupings for particular weight or equipment requirements. British Railways did not withdraw Class 28 because one bogie possessed an extra axle. The traction motors and much of the electrical equipment earned a better reputation than the engine that supplied them. This distinction matters because a dramatic silhouette makes an easy villain, while reliability records point inside the body. The early body was distinctive in another way. D5700 and its sisters emerged in British Railways green with pale bogies and wraparound corner windows at the cab fronts. Those curved outer panes gave drivers a broad view and softened the box-like ends. They also became a practical problem. Window security required remedial work, and the original arrangement was replaced by flatter, forward-facing outer panes within revised frames. A photograph can therefore date a Class 28 more accurately than a caption. Early curved corners belong to the initial configuration, while the flat window front identifies the rebuilt form. The first major assignment seemed ideal for a powerful freight diesel. The Condor was an overnight Anglo-Scottish express goods service between London and Glasgow, promoted as a fast, modern freight operation. Class 28 locomotives worked it in pairs. 6 machines were outstationed at Cricklewood on a rotating basis, while the class was officially associated with the Midland Division. 2 Co-Bos at the head of the train made a striking statement: modern containers and new diesel traction replacing a steam-era freight pattern. If you value locomotive history that separates a visible oddity from the documented fault, like the video and subscribe. The Condor evidence is where the Class 28 reputation begins to split in two. On paper, 2 locomotives supplied 2,400 horsepower and 10 powered axles. In practice, the Crossley engines made availability uncertain. The HST V8 used a 2-stroke cycle with inlet and exhaust ports in the cylinder walls and exhaust pulse pressure charging. It was a bold alternative to the four-stroke engines used in many rival British diesels, but the class suffered frequent power unit trouble, excessive noise, smoke, and oil-related problems. By June 1960, published class histories record only a small portion of the fleet available for service. A prestigious fast freight could not be planned around a locomotive that might not be ready. The response was not immediate disposal. The entire class went back for remedial attention during 1961 and 1962. Engine work and the cab window reconstruction produced the flat-fronted appearance remembered from later service. Afterward, the locomotives were concentrated at Barrow-in-Furness and worked a variety of duties in northwest England, including passenger and freight turns. This later career is often compressed into one sentence between failure and withdrawal. It deserves more attention because the machines could do serious work when available. There are records of Co-Bos handling heavy trains, sometimes in pairs, because pairing offered both power and insurance. They could lift loads that did not match the dismissive nickname of a useless diesel. Their 5 traction motors gave them sure-footed starting performance. The electrical transmission was conventional enough in principle. Diesel engine to generator, generator to traction motors, motors to axles. Crews and fitters were not facing a fundamentally impossible locomotive. They were facing a capable platform whose prime mover demanded too much intervention. That is the midpoint verdict. The Co-Bo wheel arrangement made the class unique, but the Crossley engine made it unreliable. If Metropolitan-Vickers had placed the same troublesome engine above 2 conventional bogies, the maintenance crisis would still have existed. British Railways even considered replacing the power units. An English electric engine related to the proven unit in the Class 20 was examined as a possible solution. Re-engining could have separated the useful electrical and running gear from the HST's weaknesses. It was not pursued to a fleet conversion. Why not? By the later 1960s, the pilot scheme itself was being judged. British Railways possessed too many small, non-standard diesel classes. Each demanded manuals, spares, trained staff, and workshop knowledge. Standardization promised lower support costs and higher availability. Spending heavily to re-engine 20 unusual locomotives made less sense when more numerous classes already had established supply chains. The decision was therefore larger than Crossley engineering. A small fleet had to justify not only repair but permanent exception from a rationalized railway. The withdrawal dates show how quickly that verdict arrived. 6 locomotives left capital stock in 1967. The remaining 14 followed during 1968. Most were cut up by the end of 1969. A locomotive introduced in the optimism of diesel modernization had lasted roughly as long as one heavy overhaul cycle. That short life is one reason Class 28 became a symbol of the pilot scheme's waste. But a fair trial must separate 3 charges: an unusual layout that worked, a prime mover that remained troublesome, and a procurement system that created a class too small to rescue economically. The windows offer the same lesson in miniature. The falling or insecure panes make an unforgettable anecdote, and the redesign is visible. But Windows did not condemn 19 locomotives. They were corrected. The engine problems persisted. A documentary that treats the window story as the cause mistakes an embarrassing symptom for the operational argument. The more revealing image is a flat window Co-Bo after rebuilding, a corrected cab surrounding a power unit that still prevented the class from becoming dependable. There is another visual trap. Later photographs show full yellow ends, while earlier machines carried plain green or small warning panels depending on date. Bogie color and body details changed. D5705 today is a restoration project, not a time capsule frozen in one exact day of British Railways service. Any reconstruction must choose a number, year, window pattern, warning panel, and duty that belong together. The class is too distinctive to excuse a generic green diesel. Which mattered more to the verdict, the Crossley engine, the small 20-locomotive fleet, or British Railways' rush to dieselize? Choose one in the comments and subscribe for the next case where the famous design flaw is not the whole explanation. One member escaped the cutters, but not because it was selected immediately for a national collection. D5705 was withdrawn from capital stock in September 1968 and passed into departmental use at the Railway Technical Centre in Derby. It carried the number S15705 and became associated with research work. Later, it was renumbered TDB 968006 and used as a static carriage heating unit in the Western region. Those unglamorous jobs kept a complete body and much of its machinery in railway hands after the rest of the class had vanished. The departmental record needs careful wording. Several withdrawn prototype diesels worked with the research division, and later recollections sometimes transfer the best-known tribometer duty from one locomotive to another. Railway correspondence and Travel Society research confirms that D5705 was among the former mainline diesels acquired at Derby, but also notes gaps in published sightings and use. The safe conclusion is not that D5705 spent every day hauling one famous test train. It is that departmental survival created the time in which private preservation became possible. The locomotive eventually entered preservation and moved through a long sequence of storage and restoration locations before reaching the East Lancashire Railway at Bury. The Class 15 Preservation Society now documents work on behalf of the privately owned machine. Its progress reports extend across years because restoring a sole survivor is not like maintaining a common production class. Components cannot simply be borrowed from another Co-Bo. Drawings, worn parts, specialist manufacture, finance, and volunteer time all become part of the engineering. D5705 also preserves the feature most responsible for the class's downfall, a Crossley HST V8. Retaining that engine gives the project historical quality. Replacing it with a reliable modern unit could make movement easier, but would erase the physical evidence around which the class's real story turns. The restoration is therefore more than a return to running condition. It is an attempt to preserve a complete technological choice from the pilot scheme, including the difficult prime mover that standardization rejected. The survivor changes the verdict. Stand beside D5705 and the unequal bogies no longer look like a joke. The longer CO bogie carries 3 traction motors, the shorter BO bogie carries 2. The arrangement explains weight distribution and adhesion. Look upward and the revised flat cab windows record the 1961 remedial program. Inside, the Crossley engine explains why a locomotive with useful tractive characteristics could not build an acceptable availability record. One machine contains 3 different layers of evidence. Class 28 also reveals the difference between a bad component and a bad railway locomotive. A locomotive is a system, and the railway around it is another system. The electrical gear, traction motors, bogies, brakes, cab, engine, depot, spare parts chain, and timetable all have to support one another. An unreliable prime mover can nullify excellent adhesion. A technically possible re-engine can be commercially pointless for only 20 units. A corrected window can improve safety without changing the cost of keeping the fleet in traffic. This is why simple comparisons with successful classes need restraint. A rival with lower starting tractive effort might still deliver more useful work because it was available more often. A more numerous class could justify stores and training that a small fleet could not. The performance of one healthy Co-Bo on one heavy train does not cancel months of maintenance evidence, just as a breakdown does not prove the axle arrangement was wrong. Service value is power multiplied by availability, compatibility, and time. So, was Co-Bo the fatal mistake? No. It was unusual, visually awkward to some observers, and unique in British mainline practice, but it gave 5 powered axles and strong adhesion. The decisive weakness lay in the Crossley HST V8 and the cost of supporting a small, non-standard fleet during a drive toward rationalization. British Railways could have attempted re-engineering, but that would have meant investing again in machines already marked as exceptions. The class deserves neither romantic acquittal nor a lazy guilty verdict. The Condor showed the intended promise. The remedial rebuild showed that some faults could be corrected. The withdrawals showed that organizational economics had overtaken further rescue. D5705 survived because a research and heating career delayed destruction long enough for preservation to intervene. Look again at a Class 28 profile. The uneven wheelbase is no longer a symbol of irrational design. It is the evidence of 5 traction motors beneath a 1200 horsepower Type 2. The flat corner windows are no longer generic styling. They are scars from a fleet-wide correction. And the surviving Crossley engine is not merely a source of smoke and noise. It is the component that turns an odd-looking diesel into a precise lesson about Britain's rushed transition from steam. That evidence still matters.